Hey there, it's your briefing attorney, Jeremy Rosenthal. I wanted to share this interview with you from April 2024. We talk about the jury selection in Donald Trump's case. Obviously, this case resulted in a conviction of Donald Trump. He was ultimately sentenced to what's called an unconditional discharge, which means that as it stands at the moment, he is a felon in name only. The case is still on appeal. What I think is interesting about this case and what you might talk about in the comments below is this. Donald Trump was able to have a jury of 12 people. Now, I don't know that that jury was fair or not fair, but he's obviously the most recognizable man in the planet, and he was tried in Manhattan. So when we talk about trials for people like Luigi Mangione or anybody else in Manhattan going forward, is a change of venue ever possible? Because is that jury pool so incredibly deep that we can always see the jury? Discuss in the comments below, and I look forward to visiting with you. Have a great day.
So, for those that missed out on what happened yesterday, could you catch us up what happened inside of the courtroom? We are being told by our Fox partners over in New York that the former president actually fell asleep during those jury selection proceedings.
It's pretty mundane stuff. The judge has an elaborate plan to pick this jury. They've been putting it in place for a couple months now. They've circulated a lot of back and forth between both parties, and for the most part, it's fairly agreed on the protocol of how this is going to be done. They bring in sounds like about 100 folks at a time. They ask you if you are going to be so dug in that you can't sit on the jury one way or the other. The folks who raise their hands are out. The folks who who think that they can be fair, they get to answer a 42-page or 42 questionnaire that again is for the most part agreed by the parties. And then they get follow-up questions from there. At the end of day one, we had 0 jurors out of 96 seated. So I don't think that they're looking for 18 total, 12 jurors, 6 alternates. I think they're going to get there, but the question here is anybody in the United States or the world just too famous to stand trial? That's the real question that's, I think, getting answered here.
Right. And when you think about the media attention that these criminal trials have gotten, when you think about, as you mentioned, the former president, pretty much a celebrity. He was one before he became president, and what he stands for, what he represents, many people knowing him. Some support him, some don't. But nevertheless, these attorneys have a very meticulous job, if you think about it, because these jurors, you don't want them swayed to go against if you're for him or against him as an attorney.
That's absolutely right. I mean, one of the misnomers about jury selection, a question we get asked a lot is, why did you pick me? Why did I make this panel? You're not so much picked as you are left over. So what they're doing is they're running people through, and the court can strike you. The judge can say, okay, you just can't be fair, and that's fine. We want people to be honest about that, and just by being honest, you're giving the man a fair trial, right? If you know that, look, I'm sorry, I think I'm going to convict you, and I don't think I'm going to be able to listen fairly. If they say that, then they're gone. Of course, the people, the government, they're looking for the opposite. But each side is kind of digging out those landmines, because you can't really win a case at jury selection, but you can absolutely lose it if you let somebody get on the jury who was just predisposed to hate your guts.
And I wonder, with you being an attorney, are there any concerns that maybe a juror who is picked could potentially leak information, could potentially be speaking to the media, could be selected for the wrong reasons? Because we've seen with several cases, information is leaked, excuse me, that could potentially harm the proceedings.
That's a huge X factor, right? I mean, if you think about it, I mean, there you are in your house in Manhattan, and then you get that your lottery ticket that says you've got jury duty that day. And some folks are probably in their mind thinking that, yeah, this is going to be my 15 minutes of fame. It's really, really hard to weed that out, because people are probably not going to be that honest about it. But what the judge is going to do is the judge is just going to really lean on folks and say, look, I mean, if you haven't noticed, this is a pretty big circus here, and it's kind of an expensive one. And if you have your own little agenda here, you could really upset the apple cart for everybody. And pretty pleased with sugar on top. Don't do that. But there's not a lot more that folks can do to assure the integrity. Although, if a juror does lie, a juror's under oath when they're answering questions, so they have liability if they say something that is something that's false.
Well, Jeremy, if yesterday was any indication of how long this process could last, we don't think jury selection will even be resolved today. I want to ask you, how long can jury selection go to a point where maybe the judge is like, you know what, I'm going to select the jurors, or maybe I'm just going to be the determining factor overall?
This judge has, it sounds like in the letter that he wrote to the parties, they've got a potential jury pool of several thousand, which is astronomical. That's really big. I mean, it's only the hardest jury to pick in American history. So you would think that there's a lot of folks who they have lined up. The X factor here. So when a jury is being chosen or deselected, the judge can eliminate a juror because the juror either expresses a bias or says, I can't follow the law. They say something like, I know that he has the Fifth Amendment right not to talk, but if he doesn't testify, I'm going to hold that against him. Those are what are called challenges for cause. In New York State, each party gets 20 what are called peremptory challenges, which means that Mr. Trump and the state of New York, the prosecution, can strike about 20 people for any reason that they want. Maybe somebody looked at Donald Trump funny and his team didn't like it. They can strike that juror. Or somebody says something that, even though they say that they can be fair, for whatever reason, they don't think that they can be fair. One of the parties, they can strike folks for really any reason that they want. Those are limited. So eventually, we don't know how many of the people yesterday were eliminated by the parties as compared to the judge. When those strikes run out, then I think you're going to see both parties kind of having to deal with folks who they may not like.
And Jeremy, let's not forget to mention maybe there are some jurors who, and I don't know if this is possible in this case, so please correct me if I'm wrong. You're the expert, but maybe they might be scared to be a part of the jury. As we know, there have been people who might get threats after this trial is over, or those types of things. So do you think that could play a role as well?
Absolutely. I mean, I don't think, I think there's tons of people who, when they did get that jury notice, were looking at it between their fingers saying, not me, not me, not me. Oh, darn, this is the case that I get. The judge is keeping the list anonymous. They're referring to jurors in the courtroom by their number and not their name. The judge has ordered the lawyers cannot disclose the names beyond just the lawyers, which means that Donald Trump himself is not getting to learn the names necessarily of the jurors, if I understand it correctly. At the end of the day, do these precautions make people feel any safer, or do they actually work? I don't know.
Well, I guess at this point, Jeremy, is pretty much wait and see. And we definitely appreciate you joining us this morning on Live Now from Fox to put things into perspective. You know, I always enjoy speaking with you. You keep it real, and you definitely paint a picture, giving us an inside look as to what we can expect. Thank you so much for joining us, Jeremy. You enjoy the rest of your day.
You too.